In a democracy, the public's right to know ought to be valued above the right to privacy of candidates for public office. And this is a true statement because the public's right to know will build trust between the people and the government. If the public doesn't know what's going on with the government, this will obviously not build trust. It will lead to less trust between the people and the government. Therefore, future decisions may be implemented by these opinions that the people have started to form. If there's mistrust from the people's end towards the government, they're not going to continue supporting their government to make executive decisions or place executive orders. This is technically how a stricter form of government starts, not a democracy, more so like a dictatorship. I'm not necessarily saying this will lead to a dictatorship, but it could definitely break the democracy that the United States faces now if the people continue to stand by these negative or harsh opinions of a government that essentially lies to them. And like I said, this will affect future implementations, decisions, things like that, because the people just won't be in agreement to it, thinking that there may be some underlying factor or information that they are not completely aware of, because if the government has lied to them once before, why would they be afraid to do it again? One example that I have of a specific election where this type of thing happened was the Donald Trump versus Joe Biden presidential election, the most recent one. During this election, I think there was 2 times where the votes had to be recounted on separate dates. That's not normal. The votes should not have to be recounted multiple times. And only people within the government and government officials knew the actual truth and the progress of this election, or who was in the lead. The people of the United States did not really have access to that information. They weren't really told anything. Everything that the people were told was minimal information, very skeptical of it as well. And people began to speak through word of mouth to other people, and that is how news about the election seemed to spread. It was just through word of mouth and assumptions, because, oh, I heard this from so-and-so and I heard this from so-and-so is obviously not a reliable source of information, but it was the only way to get information because the government was not sharing anything or updating us on the election. And like I said, there were recounts at the end of it, which is not reliable. And the government obviously was hiding the number of votes for certain officials and things like that. Maybe they thought that would keep the people, away from the public officials and the people running for office. Due to lack of information, it might just keep everybody less interested, but I think that actually stirred the pot a lot more and made the situation worse, because there were a lot more rumors, lies, and assumptions going around. And so when the results obviously came out, people were probably skeptical or questioning how this came to be, when last week I heard this. So it's important to keep the people updated, especially during times of elections, when selecting people that are going to be in charge of you from now on. It is important that you know what's going on during this process, or else you might not trust that official that's in charge of you, or you might not feel obligated to comply with something that they just implemented because they lied to me about how you got to office, so why would I support what you're doing in office, essentially. With a lack of trust between the government and the people, this can also actually lead to the creation of things like conspiracy theories. If the people aren't trusting the government, they may start to think of crazy things that are happening behind their backs, essentially. We view in a democracy the government as people essentially more powerful than us, but also people who are supposed to protect us. And if the people who are supposed to be protecting you lie to you, you might start to think, what else are they doing behind my back? This is how popular conspiracy theories begin, especially relating to government officials. And that all comes from at least one person having distrust of this official. And so they start these theories, which are also along the lines of assumptions, rumors, and lies. But either way, that can hurt actually the government official's image. So if someone has a conspiracy theory that the president, is doing something crazy, let's say, like with aliens or another planet, right? And then something bad happens along those lines, the people might say, oh, President so and so knew about this, even though the president might not have known something like that. It can lead to that type of talk amongst the people, which, following the order of events there, that's just going to create more distrust against the government, and it's going to continue to go downhill from there. So leaving citizens in the dark and not letting them know what's going on, especially in times of an election, will probably lead to destroying the democracy that the U.S. has right now, because electing someone that is supposed to protect you and make decisions, regarding your protection and your rights, but then finding out they lied to you makes you feel unprotected and probably scared and definitely skeptical of future decisions and implementations that may occur. Because if someone lies once, there's no determining if they will or will not do it again. And so lying, not even necessarily lying, but hiding information from the people of the United States will lead to distrust for the government, and that can harm future decisions. It can also definitely affect future elections and just start a bad reputation for public officials because they hide things from their people, and that will not support a democracy.